welcome back. It's been about a month since I've been in here. We took the body off late May, 21st of the 5th. Today, 3rd of the 7th. So I've had a lot of time off, got a lot of work happening. As you can see, got the first side of the exhaust off. Not put this in a useful position to get past actually, hold on. Alright, so all that needed was taking the heat shielding off that was around here, which to take the heat shielding off, ideally I needed both lambda centers off. There's one kind of around here somewhere. That came off easy enough, 17mm spanner, was not that bad. This one, much harder work, access is not great, and I just can't get the leverage on it, so I decided to leave it later. Put a little snip in the heat shielding just on that side of it there, just to ease it off. It was really close anyway, so not too bad. And then there's just a clamp. Let's come down here. It's just a clamp here, cat, and there's another clamp down there, which is what I'm going to work on now, so I can get the second exhaust off. The reason for taking the exhaust off now is that they stick out a long way on the end, and if I want to get an engine crane in front of the engine, then that's what I need to do so I can roll it backwards as far as possible, so they've got space in front of the engine there. I'm trying to keep as much as possible on the engine so that there's less for me to remember to put back together, because I think the engine's in pretty good shape, but we'll have a look around it. But you can see on the block there, that's looking pretty clean, pretty nice, because it was only rebuilt about 18,000, 20,000 miles ago. I don't know, I'll have to check the records. So we'll continue with this. We'll get the 2 bits of exhaust off, and then I'll figure out where I'm going to store them, and then we'll move to the front so that we can get the engine out first. And then after the engine's out, we'll take all the suspension off the 4 corners, because I want to leave it rolling for as long as possible, and then we can get it shot blasted. All right, let's get on. Both exhausts are now off up there. Hopefully that won't fall over. It was much easier to get access to those exhaust clamp bolts, especially the lower one, when that tray is off. Also had a couple of bolts holding what I think is the anti-roll bar. I think it was, yeah, anti-roll bar, yeah. So bracket that was holding them on through the tray into the chassis. So that's done. On the end of the top end of those, where the can meets the muffler, they seem to have not applied the kind of brackets correctly. They seem to have put a normal nut on it. That's gone right inside the bracket, so they're really hard to detach. So I'll do that another day. Since I don't have a 38mm spanner to undo this, the oil tank nut at the top and at the bottom, might as well drain power steering fluid for a little bit. Weird deposit inside the power steering clamp. This power steering area in general has been covered in this kind of nasty deposit. I don't know what it is. Maybe a leak. Alright, so just taking the power steering pump off, and it's kind of assembly. It's just over there with its two lines. Taking the coolant tank off, which you saw me doing, which was kind of here, and it's bracketry. We've got this, and as I said, this is a 38mm spanner, which I don't have, so I need to go and find a 38mm spanner. I'll probably buy one, I suppose. And there's another one at the bottom, but there's also a whole series of other connections, obviously, because you've got the oil pump here, and you've got the lines that go near around where the oil filter is down there, and also this line here going down. So lots of things to disconnect in order to well, only really two things to disconnect to get the tank out, I suppose. But while I'm there, I might as well kind of follow these lines around and label them all up so that I know I've got all the oil stuff at the same time, kind of thing, and everything leaking out of the car at the same time, which is a bit better. And then we'll kind of go from there. Probably might ask on the Facebook group a bit later about advice on exactly the idea of the best way to strip this. I think getting the tanks off is kind of obvious. I did want to get the engine out before working on the suspension. I think that's fine. But then other questions I've got, like, do I disconnect the gearbox from the engine, or do I just lift it out as one? I guess I do need to disconnect the prop shaft, but I've not ever disconnected a prop shaft before, so that'd be. And then to get the engine out, do I need to disconnect the prop shaft, and therefore do I need to do something about the diff, and therefore the drive shafts, and blah 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 blah. Would it be better to break apart this back end first, so that I can get the engine out? But I don't know. I imagine the engine will come out just by disconnecting the prop shaft here. But I don't know about the gear stick. As it lifts out, it's obviously going to have to clear that chassis. But I do have an engine crane, so that should lift out fine. But that's the general questioning that's going on at the moment. Right, I suppose I need to find a 38mm spanner. Oh, man alive. That was on the tight side of things. There we go. One oil cooler slash oil tank slash whatever you want to call it. So that was what I was just doing. This, the one I undid earlier, and this. See, this is where, after telling you that it was the oil pump, then I told you it was the water pump, and then eventually you realise I think it's the oil cooler, because I've just undone these two lines here, which obviously look like oil lines as well, and they spat a load of oil out onto into. Fortunately, I had my oil thing under there anyway, just in case. And then you realise there's a coolant pipe that runs through it, through the other side of it. So kind of obviously, water's going through there, oil's going through there. So it's probably an oil cooler, isn't it? Oh my days. Anyway, these two just came off with a bit of judicious use of the adjustable spanner and hammer to get them loose. It was a little bit tricky because this is on bushings, so it moves around quite a lot. So you can't just kind of, you've got to give it a right whack, otherwise it just absorbs the force. But now that pipe's loose, now I can undo the oil cooler itself and undo this coolant pipe at the back, and then that should come out. And then I think that's everything off the front of this that needs to move for the engine to move, which was the idea in the first place, I suppose. Just found two pads, more a reminder for myself than anyone, these two here, that were just on the chassis, there and there, which is for the oil tank, where it sits, stop the oil tank rubbing on the chassis. Alright folks, I unbolted the prop There you go, from the diff down here. That needed some 9/16 bolts. So fortunately I had the right socket for that. But it isn't coming out. And I think I need to just lift the gearbox a little bit so that will just drop down. And then I can start working my way backwards. Gearbox, bell housing, which is bell housing here to there kind of thing. Has the clutch obviously here. And then once that's out, obviously the engine hopefully will just kind of lift out. A few ancillaries might need to come off. But I was getting bored, very bored of bending over that all the time. And I also have a lift. So I figured, well, why is the body sitting there taking up the lift space? So I've managed to, well, you can see that, I've managed to get that past the lift thing down there, which is good, which was a little bit scary at times. Hopefully the nose will point out far enough without those wheels getting into the gravel, because if the wheels go in the gravel, I'm absolutely toast. Hopefully that'll point far enough out that I can just bring it towards me, and then it can go in this place. First, I need to move this out of the way. So let's do that now. That was the easy bit, pushing that out. Now we've got to see whether this is going to slide over or not. I reckon it should. Okay, probably not the best day to do this, like a heat wave, but anyway, that was actually quite straightforward. I'm really glad the pallet that this sits on is right at the back and the nose is really long, and so it could stick out the garage really far and clear the lift pillars. So the only thing left is just to push that one around and then reverse it back in and try and get it in. That's going to be the hot bit. Good. Funny thing is, there's lots of little bits of drops of power steering fluid around, because obviously I took the power steering pump off, the connection to the rack, etc. Sorry, the power steering pump's still there, but the two lines and the power steering reservoir have gone. So it just keeps going squirt, squirt, because I keep putting loads of air into the power steering. Anyway, swap complete. It's now many weeks later, because I haven't really got back to this for a long time. Work, holidays, that kind of stuff have got in the way. I've literally not been in here for 3 weeks, probably. Just over, or just under, maybe. We want to get this engine out. First of all, I disconnected the prop shaft at the back. It hasn't dropped down yet, but I'm sure it will when we lift the engine, and I'll deal with it then. So I've just been working on this side of things. I've removed the alternator just because it gives me much easier access to this engine mount, and I really do want to remove the power steering pump as well, just because it's very close to the chassis. It'll clear it, that's why this little notch is there, I assume. But at the same time, it's quite close, and I'd rather just get it off. Plus, it's really dirty and horrible, so I'm not convinced about its operation anyway, so there's no point really leaving it on the engine. You can see down here just how grimy, mucky it all is around here. And the block, the engine, seems fine, so I don't think it's oil. I think it's power steering fluid kind of leaking from somewhere. So I'd rather get that assembly off. At that point, the alternator, obviously, connected to this kind of electrical cable and this little sensor here, and what else? Oh, I also took out let's go over here. Took out the main line from the battery to the starter, because obviously that was in the way. There's the alternator. And I took out the main kind of this fuel line here, which was running from just this top area here, there, even just there, all the way to the rear of the car. So that's good and out of the way. So I think once I've got that power steering line off, oh, that's the other reason. I want to remove this power steering pump because I want to get this big old hose off, which connects to a kind of a double hex thing at the bottom. So I need to, and that'll give me loads more clearance to get that thing off, which is useful. And then round here, I don't think there's anything round here that still needs disconnecting. Those hoses are disconnected. Obviously all of this is disconnected. The engine mount obviously needs doing just down there. So I struggle a little bit with getting this power steering pump off because the Sagaris manual that I've got doesn't really help. So I'll put it up in the air because I knew there must be something I'm missing, and there is something really obvious I'm missing. The tensioner for the power steering's here, so I can easily kind of remove that. Well, hopefully easily anyway. Not a lot of access, but a spanner I'm sure will be fine. And then also under here somewhere at the back behind that, behind the tensioner thing, behind here, I see it unfortunately, somewhere there is a bolt, which I think might be quite difficult to get while the pulley's on. But if I can slack that off, I can slack the belt off, and then I've already removed these three. So maybe then the tensioner comes off and then you can remove the power steering, and then that's easy. All right, and then I've got a second big adjustable spanner so that I can have a go at this one here, because you've got to hold it that side and do it that side. And then only had one big enough adjustable spanner to do one of those. So we'll give that a go now. Okay, so power steering is off. Good job I had the lift access. So you can see that this is a kind of captive bolt down there, part of the bracket. So you loosen that one off, and you loosen the tensioner off, and then it moves, and then you can get the bolt bracket off. Then you can undo the bolts so that you can get the pulley out. This thing here, that's the tensioner, and it's bolt there, and then that gets the power steering pump off. I've cleaned that up. It's absolutely covered in crap, so definitely I think might have been leaking from somewhere. I mean, I don't know too much about these things, but I mean, it turns, I think it turns fine. Makes a little bit of a clicky noise. Don't know whether it was leaking from there or not. Anyway, it's off for now, that's what I wanted. Now I've got to do battle with this big hose. But as you can see, we have way better access now. So I'm going to stick it up in the air. And I've got my two big adjustables so that I can get after it, because it's about 40 mil, I think. It's off. Good. Now I can remove it properly, and it's finally out of the way. It required me hanging off, well, nearly all my body weight onto this with two pretty good adjustable spanners, one on the side, one on here. I didn't think it was going to go, but it did go in the end. I did have to remove the power steering bracket as well. It was just in the way of the adjustable spanner, but now that's out. That should be no bother. So now we have everything done, I think, in order to drop the engine. So let's just put this. Pull the lock stops off. Always like to have it on the locks. Okay. It's not the fastest of going down, but it is incredibly useful piece of kit. So you can see things are looking a lot barer this side. Our bracket in the middle of the shop now, it's the alternator bracket, didn't need to remove that. My parts bin over there, the roses tin, is now completely full. We're up to about 65 different bags of stuff, I think. Hold on. Towards that bucket. also should be aware that I don't have a wheel on this corner because I took the wheel off. Obviously a lot more access around here. So this pipe now, I don't know whether you can get replacement ones of these pipes, but it did get a bit of a beating then, because it was against the power steering rack. So you can see kind of, let me try and turn it around. You can see kind of here, it's kind of got a big flat spot there, and it's got a big flat spot here as well. So I'm not sure that's a good pipe anymore, but take anyone's advice on that really. So give this a clean before I put it in the parts tray, of which I'm starting to build up more and more. There's just stuff everywhere. Glad I've labelled everything, I have to say. Okay, so now I think let's have a go around. So nothing connected there. A few hoses here, but you know, they'll come off. Well, they won't. They might come off. Oh, I could get them off, I suppose, but they're just down there. And now I've got it on the lift, it'll be quite easy to get them off. But at the same time, it will just lift out with them on. So I don't know. I'll take a view in a minute. Looks like it'll pass that. Yeah, there we go. Pass that quite easy. Obviously anti-roll bar going under the engines, that's fine. This I've already disconnected. There you go. That didn't seem to want to come off at the time, but I've got some new Allen keys now. I might give that a go in a minute. But then coming back around here, there's nothing there. Obviously I've got to get this kind of cover off, but nothing there stopping it. I need to do something about that, so I'll go after that in a minute. Let's just go to the other side. I did mention this lambda sensor before, but I think that'll be fine. Just scrape past, so engine mount, exhaust obviously off. So yeah, I think just look at the mounts. I'm going to do that gear stick now, and then nearly there. Never strapped an engine up before, never tried to lift it before, never used an engine crane, never put an engine crane together before, so soon see how this goes. So no matter how I'm going to take this engine gearbox stuff out, I'm still tempted to try and break it apart, take the try and get the prop off, then take the gearbox off, then take the bell housing off, then lift the engine straight up. But seems like if you should be able to lift the engine straight out with all of this attached. The only question is, after I've lifted it out, what do I do with it? Because if it's all attached and I want to inspect the clutch, for instance, which would be a good idea before I put it all back together, is it not easier to take it off while it's all mounted up inside the chassis? So I'll make a decision on that soon. The little dripping you can hear is just the gearbox draining fluid, because either way, I need to drain the fluid. And you can see the drain plug is down there, and the fill plug, which obviously you take out first, just in case. The fill plug, I mean, this is the drain plug. It's a 3/8 thing. You can see that one's in pretty good shape. And I had to buy a drain plug tool set, which, in fairness, Halfords had for like 12 quid. This laser set here. It's not a lot of money really for a number of different hex and thingy plugs, but the fill, not so good shape. Someone's clearly turned that a few times trying to do incorrect things inside it, and it was very tight as well because they're all Loctited or whatever this white stuff is. So I'll replace that one, probably replace both of them just to be safe. Okay. So then I'll lift it back up in the air and make a decision. You can see quite a bit of swarth in there. Just see that? All those kind of metally flaky bits.
Are you coming towards riding on that?
I'm just hoping that those big cracks weren't shearing off and they were just the bolts coming loose. So look at this one. That one's good. It's better. Pallet, which I'll flip over. I'll put some wheels on it just like I did for the body one. Hey! I'll put some wheels on that one, and then on that pallet I'm hoping to put the gearbox, bell housing, and probably the engine as well, just a temporary place where I can wheel it around and that kind of thing. I've already undone the gearbox mounting bolts underneath, and also the nut that was on top of there, so all that needs doing is jacking up so that I can remove this and let it drop. So I've got the wheels on the pallet there, so now we're just gonna got the jack in position, as you can see here. Just gonna lift that up, see if the prop shaft drops, and then see if we can get that off the mounting, and therefore if that comes off the mounting I can hopefully drop the gearbox onto the pallet. Now obviously the pallet and the jack are quite close together, so let's see what happens. Prop shaft first. Right, the prop shaft's dropped, so let's exit that. Down there by the bell housing, that's where I've got the 4 bolts out. I'm holding it up this end. Will it just nicely drop down onto the pallet? So I can't, if I just show you, I can't lower the lift anymore because it's on the pallet. I might reposition the pallet. Okay, so you might have heard that crack, a good crack, if there is such a thing, because you can see the gearbox is just starting to come apart at the bottom there, because it's kind of cracked apart. So hoping when I release the jack, come down nicely on the pallet and hopefully just fall off. It's kind of not come off. The engine's just kind of sat down. All right. Okay, we're out. So it's out. It's on the pallet. I really want to get the bell housing on the pallet, then create enough space so I can get the engine crane the engine out, put that on the pallet, and then I've got everything kind of in one place. So I might just put the gearbox on the floor, wheel it out, put it on the floor so I can get the bell housing out, and then go from there. Seems to be working there. They're all given up pretty easy. So that's hopefully a sign that they've been torqued properly in the past. maybe by Powers, I don't know, whoever, when they did the engine rebuild. I don't know. But either way, they all seem like they've come out nicely. Just going to give them all a buzz out, make sure they're okay, put them back in and lower this down so we can let it drop off. Oh. It's not all of them. Right then. See that thing there? That's in the way of a bolt that is here. Can't quite see it, but the bolt holding the bell housing on. So I'm just going to whip this off. Just goes. Beru part. But you can see it's got a big old crack there from where someone's over tightened the bolt there. So need to see whether I can do something about that. I mean, it's probably not affecting anything, so getting a new part seems ridiculous. Anyway, that's off. Okay, that should be the last thing holding the bell housing on. Yep. So this is the starter motor, and it did have the, hold that there for a second, it did have the, from the bell housing, this thing went through here, like so, and that nut you just saw held it on this end. And I actually, for the first time ever, managed to undo one of these flare nuts, because obviously it's in the engine bay, so it's pretty protected, it wasn't very gummed up. But then I couldn't get it off here. It would not get past this point. I don't know whether it's meant to get past that point, that little thing there, but I couldn't, so I had to Dremel it off. It's quite annoying, and obviously you can see I've kind of harmed the threads there, but you know, it's a short lead, maybe it's something worth replacing anyway. Reason for doing that, of course, was to get the bell housing off, which I've now done. Now separate. I'll probably get the starter motor off. I just need to remove a lead there. But with the starter motor off, you can see now, with the bell housing off, you can see now this will clear this pipe incredibly easily, and that was the idea. And then I'll put the bell housing back on just so that it's protecting the clutch pack and everything that's going on in there. That looks relatively new, quite shiny, but then again, it's inside the bell housing, so who knows. I probably should take that apart at some point because everything's apart. So now that just leaves the engine mounts to come off, build the engine crane in here, and strap it up and pick it up, which I've never done before. So let's see. These three boxes here have been donated to me by Automotech, the guys who made my lift. And this is an engine crane, which is very nice of them, because I need to lift my engine out. So we're going to take the boxes apart, put it together, see how difficult that is. Probably not very difficult, and then lift the engine out. So thanks to Automotech, that's for sure. Hard to see there, I think, but yeah, very hard to see. Better, isn't it? Just put it all together, like. Doesn't look that complicated, to be fair. All labelled up nicely, all numbered. Okay, so I'm just adding the supports for the arm. There you have it, one engine crane. Looks pretty good, I think. Also, you know, these split, I was going to call them split pins, but they're not really, but you know, easy release things, whatever you want to call them, means that we'll be able to fold the legs up, which is good, and you can release that and then the arm folds down, and that'll aid storage. Because I asked them if I could borrow one because then I could give it back, because it's massive. But still, it's a good thing to have, I suppose. Although I don't plan on doing too many of these kind of projects, because it's taking ages, as expected. So anyway, thank you very much to Automotech. Yeah, that's where I got my lift as well, which works really well. Really good bunch of people, and looks like a good engine crane. Now we're going to find out, because obviously I've got to crane the engine out. As I said, first time I've done this, so it could be interesting, shall we say, in terms of getting it done. I've got a ratchet strap, which will go onto this. Looks pretty sturdy, but how to actually strap up the engine, that's going to be another question. Now the engine crane won't go under the chassis, which means it won't get close enough, so I'm just going to lift the chassis up just on the lift. Perfect. Now the hard bit. Figure getting the chain as close as possible makes sense. Rather than do that, found another ratchet strap, nothing on it. So I guess you can just loop this through the chain, loop it all the way around, tie it off somewhere, and we'll have a go at that. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So the only thing left to do is undo the engine mount. Okay, so the one on the other side came loose. That's all that noise that you could hear. But this one not. There we go. Oh no. No, I'll do it by hand. There we go. Interesting. That one doesn't have the same braces that the one on the other side has. This is where I find out whether I've done a good job of strapping or not. So, first glances, this side the engine mount is down, the other side the engine mount is up. This side we've got some contact with the chassis here, no contact the other side, so I need to just it'll scrape past, I'm sure. So let's just see how this side goes. Okay, let's have a look. Oh yeah, so it's coming fast, no worries. Okay, now I really need to think about where I'm going to put it before I do any more. Bit of a flaw in my plan. I can't really get the pallet. Well, maybe. It's kind of there. It's not really where I want it though, because I want it so the engine was sitting really nicely on it, so I can move the engine around if I need to. I know most people use an engine stand for this kind of thing. I haven't got one at the moment. I'm not sure even where you attach an engine stand. Can't really see any bolt. Oh, there's one there, I suppose. No, you wouldn't use that. So one there. Doesn't seem enough. No, can't see any that side. I'm sure there is a way. But yeah, I don't have one anyway. I haven't ordered one. So let's see what we can do. I have to say, I'm having a lot of luck with this. You see this pallet? Unusually it doesn't have the cross brace at the bottom, which has allowed that leg to go in there. So I can move this onto the engine crane, which is, wow, pretty amazing luck really. So we'll let that down. You could call it planning, but it really isn't. So we'll let that down, and then hopefully it doesn't fall over. I have to say, I'm having a lot of luck with this. You see this pallet? Unusually it doesn't have the cross brace at the bottom, which has allowed that leg to go in there. So I can move this onto the engine crane, which is, wow, pretty amazing luck really. So we'll let that down. You could call it planning, but it really isn't. So we'll let that down, and then hopefully it doesn't fall over. Yeah, it's really leaning on the cat's side. Well, since it was really laying down on the cat's side, I'll just Put a couple of wooden blocks under there to support it. I don't know whether it's sitting on the... Hey! It's good camera work, isn't it? I don't know whether it's sitting on the... oh my life. Just get it. I don't know whether it's sitting on the cat. Oh, no, not really. And it's no longer sitting on those oil pipes. Oh, coolant, yeah, oil pipe, whatever. Oh, maybe it is sitting on just that one a little bit. Might just pick it up and, yeah, might just do that. Looks like it. So now, pretty stable. I'm not sure about the pallet. See if we can get the pallet out. So, if you want to know how it folds up, that's how it folds up. Take the front split, you know, removable things out, lift the arm, rests against the back handle, put them back in, and it'll only do that. Reason 452 for doing this project. This engine mount is shot. Look at the state of that. It's dropped, it's cracked, it's knackered. The other one, looks pretty good. So I imagine that's quite new, that one, compared to the other side anyway. Unless they're just known for going there. Maybe they are, who knows. Right now, where this big hole was, there was an engine. Now all we've got left to do is strip everything else off the chassis, which actually isn't that much. You got the diff, which has space on the pallet of bits, although the bow on that pallet is unbelievable because of that lack of cross brace there, and I dropped the engine right on the side of it. But anyway, hopefully it'll be all right for now. So get the diff out, all the suspension off. At this end, we've got all the suspension and the steering rack, brakes, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it's not actually that much. I'm guessing some of these bolts are going to really fight me, but hopefully I've got enough clearance on most of these to get the impact gun on them. And it will make light work of them with any luck. Hopefully not shear them off. That would be a bad day. Anyway, so yeah, we'll get on with that.